Good morning. It's 11 o'clock on Tuesday. I'm drawing blank on the date, 24th was 17th. My name is Don Swiker. We'll go ahead and call the public hearing for the 5-year road plan. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. To my left, I have Mike Steinis, Don Swiker, Nen Flegel. We got Bjorn from IT. We got Shelley from the auditors. We got Brittany from the press. We got Jaden. How about it? People in the back, go ahead and introduce yourself. Yep, we'll just.
David Newman.
David?
David Chaplin.
David and David in the back row. Sue?
Cindy Berger.
Just let it be known, David both work for the county. Engineer's office, mine.
Correct.
Yep. All right, Jaden, you have the floor.
Alrighty, so yeah, we'll go through a PowerPoint to go through the 5-year program. I'll just kind of outline the projects we are proposing for the next 5 years. Just want everybody to keep in mind that this also, once we get through this, I have to send this to the DOT, so it's subject to their approval. So what you see here may or may not change, but just the DOT does have the ultimate approval first. Prior to me bringing forward at a later date too, as the board to approve, DOT needs to first approve. So with that, we'll just get started into the PowerPoint and go start getting through it.
Oh, yeah, I guess we do have one person online. Daryl Parker, you're there, correct?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, just making sure we get to know everybody that's here. So continue.
Alrighty, so welcome everybody. We'll go to the next slide, Bjorn. I always like to first start out with our bridges. So the DOT, there's 2 maps here in the back, and gave hard copies of what you see in front of you. The DOT for the 5-year program splits out of the 5 years. The first year in the program they call the accomplishment year. The remaining 4 years they call the priority years. So that's why there's 2 different maps you see in front of you. So the accomplishment year, we're upcoming on fiscal year 27. So our fiscal year 27 federally funded bridge projects, there'll actually be 2 of them this year that will occur. When I say this year, I mean fiscal year 27. For the public, the best way to correlate that for fiscal year is most likely fiscal year will kind of correlate with the calendar summer. So if we're talking fiscal year 27 bridge projects, that will most likely correlate to like a summer of 2027 when you'll actually see this construction. The DOT we have to put in the fiscal year these projects are in as they go by when they're let. So it can get confusing a little bit, but just kind of a little background on but we have to go by fiscal year.
Okay.
So our fiscal year 27 bridge project is going to be our bridge number BE 0237 on 189th Street over Brush Creek. It is an existing like 76-foot long bridge. It's proposed to be 110 foot by 30 foot CCS or continuous concrete slab bridge. Letting is planned for November of 26, and our estimated cost is $660,000. So this is kind of right below the transfer station. Currently the bridge is posted at 16 ton. So we're actually in the design process right now of that. Also for fiscal year 27, there will be one that we're adding in our program is local bridge number MON 1984 on 12th Avenue over Beers Creek. So this is actually a bridge that's in the city of Monmouth. And they're what they call their West Street, which is also known as our 12th Avenue. The city of Monmouth received, with our assistance to the DOT, funding to replace that bridge. And so they received up to $500,000 to replace that bridge. And so we as the county are being the lead agency on that project to get them through the development, the design plans, and all that DOT submittals. So that is slated for a March of 27 letting. So still fiscal year 27. That is proposed to be a 50 foot by 30 foot single span slab bridge with an estimated cost about $360,000. So those are our 2 federally funded bridge projects for fiscal year 27. I didn't make a slide for it, well, so this summer, so summer of 26, which kind of be, you'll see the bridge projects you will see constructed are actually ongoing right now. One of them is Chenoweth Bridge. That was a fiscal year 26 project, but you're seeing the construction in also in fiscal year 26, but also carry into 27, but you'll see it the summer of 26. And then our Z15 bridge, or the 362nd Avenue Bridge to south of Bellevue, that one was actually a fiscal year 25 project, but that one construction will start this spring. So you'll see those two federally funded bridge projects occurring this summer, but these are the two that are for fiscal year 27. Next slide. So for fiscal year 27, we as the county also do a lot of locally funded bridge projects. We have approximately 208 bridges in our county, and we're replacing on average at a minimum about 4 a year. So we do it by means of the federal funds with our bridge money from the DOT, and then we also tackle it with our local funds. So for our locally funded ones, there will be 2 of them as opposed to 3. One of them will be our local bridge number I'll say for the township, Washington 0725. It is on 374th Avenue. It's proposed to be a 40-foot by 27-foot single span bridge. The existing bridge was built in 1940, and it's currently got a poor substructure rating, and it's got a weight restriction of 28 tons. The next one is one we're actually applying for in the grant process right now, but it is local bridge number Iowa 3561 on 578th Avenue. That one is proposed to be a 70-foot by 30-foot continuous concrete slab bridge. That existing bridge was built in 1938. It's got a substructure and deck condition of 4, which is poor rating, that's based on our bridge inspections. And then its weight limit is set at 19 ton. And so for that bridge, it has been submitted for fiscal year 24 competitive highway bridge program funding with the DOT jointly, I'd say, with not only us, but 19 other counties and 3 cities. We're still, all of us in that joint application are still awaiting determination of award from Federal Highway Administration. It's assumed that we'll all get the grant, but they just, for whatever reason, Federal Highway's taken their time determining the awards. So with that funding of that bridge would be 71% would be from the grant, and then 29% of our local funds. So it takes less burden on our local budget if we get this grant for it. So we actually started the development of that one as well. So in that picture that you see right there, that is 3-span CCS, continuous concrete slab bridge. So that's kind of the bridge that you would expect to see in its place, or that is the replacement bridge. I always like to show some pictures of what the bridge would look like for those that aren't familiar with all the different types of bridges that are out there. So those are our 2 locally funded bridges. And the reason why we're doing 2 as opposed to 3 is, previously that we'd always replace bridges with wood piling, wood deck, wood above, everything would be wood. We're now going to either all concrete or a combination of concrete and steel, so to increase the life expectancy of them. So just trying to.
They cost more.
They cost more, and then also we obviously have other road improvements. Don't like to focus 100% on bridges. We always have a bunch of roads to maintain, so trying to distribute where we put the money each year in the most appropriate places. But that can always be subject to change too, depending on, they cost less, we can always add more in, what have you. But I always like to play a little bit conservatively, but those are our 2 locally funded bridge projects that we'll see for fiscal year 27. So then jumping to roads for fiscal year 27. So we're still in this accomplishment here for fiscal year 27. Our road rehab projects that proposed for 27 are 395th Avenue, just north of Bellevue, starting from Highway 52, going north about a mile and a half to the concrete by the Bellevue Golf Course. That mile and a half stretch of HMA is planned for full depth reclamation, because that existing asphalt is both not good condition and also not very thick. It's only about 2 inches thick in most of the roads, so there's not enough pavement structure there to allow for a milling and overlays. If you mill an inch off and you only have an inch of asphalt remaining, the truck traffic, and there's a high track, that road sees about 900 cars a day. That existing pavement structure wouldn't last long, so.
With heavy traffic as well.
Yes, yeah, because there's rock quarries through there. The railroad is nearby. There's a lot of heavy truck traffic, so we're proposing full depth reclamation as the rehab for that road.
Will that potentially change the intersection at 308th and 395th much? Not really, just from there going north.
So yes, we submitted, this project has been submitted for a multitude of grants. We have received some and are still waiting on others. So the first grant being our DOT TSIP award, which is stands for Traffic Safety Improvement Program. And this intersection has been, the intersection of 395th with 308th Street has been identified as a intersection that has some poor ratings as it relates to safety. And so we went through a grant to do safety improvements for not only this road, but to improve this intersection area, and have ultimately been received the TSIP grant in the amount of like $445,000. So the safety improvements for that grant would be adding like 2-foot paved shoulders, 6-inch wide pavement markings, the shoulder and center line rumbles, and then also realigning, which is the reason why I have that picture up there, realigning a segment of 395th Avenue at the intersection with 308th Street. So the proposed realignment would eliminate 2 out of the 3 horizontal curves there, which would improve the sight distance, because even though that road does have a speed limit, as we typically see, the speed limits are not obeyed, so people are flying through there faster than they should be. So increase the sight distance, eliminate some horizontal curves, because less curves, the safer road in theory. So you can kind of see what's called out there or shown is the proposed realignment of that roadway. And then along with that, another grant we submitted for, shouldn't say we jointly did with the city of Bellevue, was for a U-Step grant, which is for urbanized state traffic. I'm gonna butcher the acronym, but it's U-Step. Because for the intersection improvements of Highway 52 and 395th Avenue. Because that's been identified as a safety issue as well, but that intersection is not in our county jurisdiction. The intersection itself is actually the city of Bellevue. So the U-Step grant was applied really through the city of Bellevue, but we helped assist in that grant application to add an offset right turn lane, excuse me, on Highway 52 to turn on to 395th Avenue. And that has actually been approved by the DOT for that. So that'll jointly be funded through the city of Bellevue and the DOT. But since it's all going to tie with our project for the development and design, same as what we're doing with City of Monmouth, we're going to incorporate it into our project. And we'll have different divisions to keep all of those costs separate. And again, DOT will go through all this or approve all of that. But nonetheless, another grant applied to improve the safety of that roadway segment. And I'll just have you actually, we'll jump back to this, but if you jump to the next slide, Bjorn, it'll kind of show, excuse me, what the turn lane is actually proposed to look like. And I apologize for those of you in the crowd that maybe it's difficult to see that, but it's about a 900-ish feet long turn lane, and this is all per DOT design guidelines. But the reason for an offset turn lane is to give that buffer between the turn lane traffic and the actual Highway 52 north and southbound traffic. So that way, for the motorists that are traveling, I'm going to call it south on 395th, as they approach the intersection with Highway 52, with an offset turn lane, they can see on the vehicles approaching from the south without the turn lane traffic interfering with their sight distance. So,
No proposed acceleration lane going north on there though.
nope, this is only just a right turn lane for the northbound traffic. But, so we are in the design of this as well, because this is all tied together, but, again, this is another grant that was applied and received. The other grant we are waiting for yet is we're actually in the process of submitting here at the end of this month. A build grant, which I know you as the board members are made aware of that through previous meetings, but if we get that grant, that would assist in the funding for the remainder of this project. Otherwise we're planning for it all to come out of our FM account. Other than the money you receive from the grant, the rest of the road rehab project is proposed to come out of our FM account, which is no different than every other year, or every year we do road rehab projects. But with this build grant, this road met all the qualifications. We were in year 2 of applying. We were unsuccessful last year, but if we get it, it would alleviate all of a lot of our FM funding for this project. So the whole project in its entirety could basically be funded through grants. So now when I go through the cost breakdown, I'm assuming worst case scenario that we don't, and it'll happen, but just wanted to highlight some of the grants that we have either received and gotten, or we will be submitting for and hopeful to get. So now you can go back to the previous screen. So with that, total cost of that entire project is right around 2.53 million. The U-step with the city of Bellevue DOT, that grant amount was right around don't quote me on numbers, I have to look at it, but around the $250,000 range. And then again, our T-step award was for $445,000. So the whole project as a whole, 2.53 million for that 1.5 mile stretch. And then our other fiscal year 27 rehab project is going to be a fog seal, like we have historically been doing here the last few years, on Z34 or 418th Avenue, starting from the Clinton County line and going north to Highway 64. So that's just trying to keep on track with our schedule we have been, where we fog sealed some of our more recent HMA overlay roads in order to preserve them to last longer.
We've never fog sealed that one before.
No, not from
Okay.
Clinton County line to north. No.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know for everybody in the room, this may not show up well. For those who are, if anybody's zooming, can maybe see it a little bit better, but it's also available on our county website. But this is just a map to show those fiscal year 27 accomplishment year projects that we have just gone through. So just to kind of give a visual of where those projects are at in relation to the county as a whole. Because when I'm saying all the avenues and bridge numbers, I know where that's at, but most people probably don't. So unless it affects them directly, but that's a map of those projects. Next slide. So now we'll jump into the remaining 4 years, which the DOT calls the priority years. And we'll start with bridges.
Don't use that green again.
Note taken. That green does not show up well on my screen. Here,
Well, I think the small print makes it equally as hard.
should have done black text, maybe that
Yeah.
maybe showing up or not. Doesn't look that bright on my screen. That's weird, but note taken for next year. So for fiscal year 28 through 31, these are going to be our federally funded bridge projects. The first one being our largest, we are proposing to replace Iron Bridge on Iron Bridge Road over the Maquoketa River for fiscal year 28. The proposed bridge will be, we've kind of got it already hydraulically sized, proposed to be a 409 feet long precast pre-tension concrete beam bridge. The estimated cost is $6.7 million for that bridge. It is going to be a very costly bridge. We have received 2 years ago from the DOT $2 million from their annual county bridge construction fund for this bridge, similar as we did for Channelworth, which is now being replaced. But again, at a $6.7 million cost, $2 million, that's essentially, that's not even a third of the cost of the bridge. So this is where our other build grant, which I know, again, you as the board are aware of this, we are applying for our third year for the fiscal year 26 build grant as it relates to bridge replacement for $3.9 million. That is also getting submitted at the end of this month for both the 395th build grant and the Iron Bridge build grant. We won't know the status of those until end of June, early July from the US DOT, but we're applying for it. It's the reason why the Iron Bridge is such a costly bridge is not only due to its length of the bridge, but given the terrain and some other environmental constraints. So with one environmental constraint being the existing bridge is considered historic, and it's when a bridge is classified as historic, as the city of Monmouth found out a few years ago, it's not just as easy to remove it and replace it. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. So we are proposing to move Iron Bridge, the new replacement bridge, south or upstream of the existing bridge. But with that, it entails not only right-of-way acquisition, but rock drilling and blasting and removal, which is what really increased the cost. Cost on just simply for the rock drilling, blasting, and removal is right around $2 million. So now it's proposed to move upstream the replacement bridge. Given the magnitude of the cost for the relocation, we are actually have a meeting with DOT this week on possible, like, is there any way we can replace the bridge in its current place, like remove the existing bridge, just like we're doing with Channelworth, and put it in its existing place, because that with that additional $2 to $2.5 million to remove rock warrants taking a deeper dive into the location of the replacement bridge. Because, you know, if things were to happen where we could replace the bridge in its current place, well, then you're looking at a little over $4 million for the bridge as opposed to 6.7. And I'll get into the reason why that's could play a crucial role into later projects. But just kind of wanted to give a brief, that was brief enough, breakdown of that project alone, because that is going to be a major project for the county to tackle. So as I did with other projects, I plan conservatively that we are not awarded grants. So again, we're applying for build grant for Iron Bridge, but if we do not get that grant, we can still make the bridge replacement happen. Even at the 6.7 million, ideally be less than that, but we can still make it happen. And so I'm planning for worst case scenario that we don't get that grant. So with that being said, the following year, fiscal year 29, we are not proposing any federally funded bridge replacement to build up our yearly DOT allocation of bridge money. So we get money each year from the DOT, federal funds, I should say, from the DOT for bridge, specifically for bridge replacement. And they let you build up so many years worth and also spend ahead. So it's not like they give you X amount this year, you have to spend it this year. They kind of let you build up and save for projects like this. Well, that's exactly what it's going to take for this bridge to happen if we don't get any more grants, is that our bridge account will take a hit. We're going to have to stop doing a bridge for at least a year to help replenish that. But our funds will not sustain another bridge replacement project. I have other, and in the next slide, when we get there, I'll go through the funding breakdown for how that $6.7 million is being funded. But as it relates to the federal bridge fund, it's proposing not a bridge in 29. Now, hopefully, again, that changes, but I'm just planning for worst case scenario. Fiscal year 30 is a bridge, Jackson 2938. It is on 317th Avenue over Brush Creek. That one will be a proposed continuous concrete slab bridge. The existing bridge right now is 150 by 20 feet long. And then our fiscal year 31 bridge is tentatively planned for the Moorhead Bridge on 74th Street over the Maquoketa River. Now, I say tentatively because it depends on everything. I hate to say, but all this depends on, we're applying for a lot of grants. So Moorhead Bridge depends on whether or not we get awarded the build grant for Iron Bridge, and or if we get awarded our fiscal year 26 County Bridge Construction Fund Award that we submitted for Moorhead this past winter, which we'll find that out in March. So it's kind of dependent on just, we only need one of the two. I want both funds to tell you the truth, but we at least need one of the two in order to make Moorhead Bridge happen. So that's why I say tentatively, but I wanted to have it in the program so that way try to think positively. If we do get the grant, then it's already in the program. We can start moving ahead with things. But worst case scenario, if we don't get either grant, that bridge is not happening. But trying to remain hopeful. So the next slide. Again, I apologize as with the other pictures that don't show up well for those here, but this kind of just gives a breakdown of our bridge funds. So you can, most important information, I guess, is going to be the right side of the screen or the columns to the right. So I go through the bridge projects for each fiscal year. So I have Channelworth in there, then, okay, the bridge on 189th Street is the next row down, then Iron Bridge, and then the row below that is highlighted because that's the overtaken year off. So estimated cost in the one column, you can see is $6.7 million. On the next column, do the funding breakdown to how to fund said $6.7 million. First column is the awarded grant amount, which is $2 million. That's that DOT money we got. The next column is for additional fund build grant, which, so I'm showing not getting the build grant for it, as noted there, but that call out. I am showing then to plan for worst case scenario to still make that bridge happen, to take $1 million from our farm to market account, which we historically have always tried to use primarily for road rehab projects, but this bridge also Iron Bridge needs to get replaced because it is at a 21 ton weight restriction and is not getting any better rather quickly. So we need to have it get replaced. And we got $2 million from the DOT. So there's a time clock of when we have to use those funds. So I don't want to waste those funds. The bridge needs replaced now. So let's try to while we got the $2 million, let's try to take advantage of that. Let's get this thing done. So $1 million from FM. And then also we get federal funds for road rehab projects. We get a small allocation each year, and same with a lot of our funds. We either let build up to spend in one project. Well, I'm showing to use our STBG 1.5 million in STBG federal dollars to help supplement that. And then the remainder of that, when you take 2 plus 1 million plus 1.5, there's still remaining. That is what's coming out of our annual or our DOT federal fund bridge account. So, critical piece then of it is these last two out of the 3 columns is our ending HBP balance, which is our highway bridge program. That's that bridge account I was telling you about. And then our borrow ahead years max. So they only allow us to borrow ahead or overspend 4.5 years worth of our bridge account. So with Iron Bridge, when you factor in all those costs, we're going to be at 3.7 years borrowed ahead, and they only allow 4.5. So one could say, well, you still got almost a full year left. Well, annually, we only get about 580,000. That's actually on the slide. Roughly about $580,000 per year from the DOT for our bridge account. Well, with any of these bridges, they're costing, take the river bridges out of the equation, just our standard 3-span bridge, like what was replaced here a couple of years ago south of town. That bridge cost $660,000. So, one bridge is already over a year's worth of funds. So that's why we're showing to take a year out, which gets us then to 2.7 years borrowed ahead. And then that's why that's for fiscal year 29. Then here's the remaining ones to show where we'd be sitting with our bridge account. And Moorhead, if you notice, is in red because we don't get any grants for that. We'd be 6.5 years borrowed ahead, which is well over the 4.5. So can't make that happen unless there's grants. Just to show bridges are costly. We don't get a whole lot of money. Federal, we can take all we can get, but it's just bridges are costly and we have a lot of them. And the Coconut River is very costly as it relates to our county infrastructure to try to tackle. But I guess with point being, with that though, we can still make Iron Bridge happen, but so with Channelworth happening now and Iron Bridge, you know, in a span of 5 years, we're at least have 2 out of 5 or 2 years. Sorry, 2 river crossings replaced in the last 5 years on the Pocono River. So that's pretty substantial, but that's due to receiving grants. I'm all about grants, if you can't tell.
That's good.
Next slide, Bjorn. So this is that same funding breakdown, but showing what could happen if we get the 3.9 million in build. We wouldn't use $1 million we would not take $1 million from our FM account for that project. We'd only need about 800,000 from STBG as opposed to 1.5 million. And then the remainder would be, actually, that'd be the whole funding package itself. So then I would, if this happens, we would either move the bridges that are below it up and add another bridge in, or sneak another bridge in where that green column is. But either way, if we get a grant, showing the grant we get, we would add another bridge into the program. So, and with that, you know, if we get the raise grant, or was raised last year, it's build this year. If we get the build grant for Iron Bridge, Moorhead with no funding, we'd be at 2.64 million borrowed ahead, so well within our limits. So it's kind of show why we need at least one of the 2 grants, but again, we'll take both if we can get them. Next slide. And then for remaining bridges for our priority years for fiscal year 28 through 31 are just kind of showing up there. I can read through them all if you want, but we can also show them on a map later at the end of where these projects are at. But I guess for the just sake of doing it, I'll go through the bridge projects. Fiscal year 28 will be PE 2963 on 234th Avenue, and then VB 1475 on 58th Street. Then fiscal year 29 is PS 0398 on 389th Street, FA 1054 on 358th Avenue, then Washington 0575 on 193rd Street. Fiscal year 30 is Iowa 0283 on 580th Avenue, and VB 1555 on 58th Street. And then fiscal year 31, we have Jackson 3693 on 111th Street, Union 1900 on 50th Street, and Iowa 2053 on 525th Avenue. And you know, when we get to the slides, and for those that have the copies in front of you of those maps, the colors just kind of correlate with the colors on the maps. So what's in green, it's all fiscal year 28 and all shown accordingly on that map, so on and so forth. Slide. That green does show bad. For our fiscal year 28 through 31, these are a list of our road rehab projects. For fiscal year 28, we are proposing to do the Caves Road from 98th Street, right at the Caves entrance, going all the way to Highway 61 for a length of about 5.6 miles. That project will be an HMA hold in place recycling and HMA resurfacing. And then fiscal year 28 is also a fog seal on 150th Street, or better known as E17, from the Caves Road going to Esgate Road. Fiscal year 29 is, we're only doing a fog seal which is going to be on Y61 all the way, starting from Highway 62, going all the way north to the city of Lamont, which is about 9.5 miles. The only reason we're doing a fog seal and no other major rehab project is again due to allocating FM funding to Iron Bridge replacement as worst case scenario. I don't like to do that, but just trying to be realistic, or hopefully not realistic, but trying to just plan for worst case scenario that if we don't get the grant, how we need to make other things happen. So for then fiscal year 30 is planned for an a major rehab on E17 from Highway 61 all the way to Highway 62. That project is proposed to be a 6.5-inch PCC unbonded overlay, which is a project that will be occurring this year on the Bernard Road, starting from E17 going to Crabtown Bridge. And then fiscal year 31 is the Bernard Road. From the Crabtown Bridge over the Macopa River going north to 234th Street. That project would also be a 6.5-inch PCC unbounded overlay. Next slide. And same as the bridges, we have a spreadsheet that kind of breaks down all of our FM funding borrowing restrictions. So from the DOT, we annually get about $1.5 million in FM funds each year. And same as the other ones, they allow you to save up so much and spend ahead so much. And so as noted in that one column also for the borrow ahead. So what's that red column is probably the one to really point out that it's taken $1 million for Fort Iron Bridge and they'll allow you to borrow ahead 4 years max for our FM account. So for fiscal year 28, when you look at the column and carry it over, we'd be borrowed ahead about 2.98, rounded off to 3 years borrowed ahead. And the reason why, again, taking a year off is typically our road rehab projects, when we go anywhere from 4 to 5 miles is generally what they tend to be. You're spending about $2.5 million. So again, that's more than what we get annually from the DOT. It's just cost of everything is expensive for road projects and bridge infrastructure projects. And one other thing I'd like to note on this slide is that we did move the Caves Road up in the program, not only due to its PCI value, so PCI is pavement condition index. So we base our road rehab projects based on data, or hard facts. And through the Institute of Transportation at Iowa State, they go through all 99 counties and come through each county about once every 4 years and do an evaluation of the pavements throughout the county. And so from that, there's a whole bunch of numbers, but ultimately you get a PCI value. So that's the best way to put it. That's a numerical score of the condition of that road. And this date, we still have yet to, they were in our county last year, but they're still compiling the data. So I won't have that available till this summer. So this data that we're referring to is actually already 4 years old. When we have this time next year, we'll actually have updated numbers, but the numbers probably have not gotten better. But the Caves Road has a PCI value of 49, which is actually worse than some of the other ones that are currently in the program. And that one also, that is actually as it relates to our county secondary road system, that one has our highest ADT, or average daily traffic count, at over 1,000 cars a day. So when you couple the high traffic count with the worst score, it's like that, to me, that warrants moving that up instead of waiting how many, because I think originally it was planned for year 2030, but I wanted to move it up because it's not in the greatest of shape. So that is between Iron Bridge and Caves Road moving up. That's probably the two biggest changes. Otherwise, all the projects that are in there have been on there's kind of rearranging based on pavement condition index. I just feel like that's a more accurate way to base road rehab decisions on. Okay, yeah, next slide, Bjorn. This spreadsheet, or this image, is from a spreadsheet that just kind of breaks down as it relates to rehabbing roadways, and based on what we get for funding each year, how much we essentially fall behind on. So we have 189 miles of roads that can use our FM or federal aid funding. Because, for example, we have some local roads that are hard surface, but we can't apply FM funds or federal aid funds to, because they don't meet the certain, they're basically a local street. They're not a minor collector, major collector, what have you. So we can't use those funds for those roads, which is because we actually have in our county like 220-ish miles of hard surface roads, but of that, only 189 miles we can use FM or federal aid dollars for. The average cost per mile for rehab, and I say average because it's going to be, we've started to do concrete rehab versus asphalt. So I'm trying to average those two out. The average cost to rehab per mile is $575,000 per mile for rehab. And if you assume a life expectancy of 52 years for that rehab to last, Then break it down for the funds we get. Or that would require us annually to get about $2.1 million annually each year between FM and federal aid dollars, just to maintain that system. We typically only get we get a 1.5 million in FM, and then our STBG, or they call it STP money, we get about $350,000. So we actually are in a deficit. We still need about $201,000 annually just to maintain our current pavement system as we have it. And I know there's some could make the argument, well, if you concrete overlays, as we found out, they are more expensive, and I always knew that, but the longevity you get, that it'll last longer and you don't need as much maintenance as opposed to asphalt roadways. Because some could argue, well, why don't we just go to more asphalt overlays? And you could, they're cheaper, but then you're still doing more, maintenance on those in the through its life expectancy. And then also that life expectancy is not going to last as long as concrete. So we have a good mix right now of asphalt and concrete roadways. So I'd kind of like to keep that, but that's where that average cost per mile is derived from. But just looks like no matter how you cut it, we are short. We could always use more money to maintain our pavement system as we have it. Next slide. This is just some data that I did get from Institute of Transportation at Iowa State for the roadway system that I told you they evaluate. They break it down for over the years, starting with 2015. Looks like they go about it. It's not every 2 years, but you got 2015, 2017, 19, 21, and 25. They rank all the roads based on, or with its PCI value. They categorize it then based on, is it excellent condition, good, fair, poor, or very poor, with very poor being red and the excellent being blue. So I just thought it was kind of interesting that through the years, if you go from 2015, 24% of our paved roadway system was in excellent condition. In year 25, 27.3 is now classified as excellent condition. So that's just showing that not only our maintenance, but our rehab projects, increasing our condition of our roadways. The green is good. We have from 2015 now, so in the last 10 years, we've went from 31.8% being considered good to 39.9. So we've increased that as well. Fair, we have went down in fair condition, but that can be accounted for by the roads that went from fair to excellent or good. So we're adding to the higher and taken from our lower. Poor, we have also decreased the poor condition roadways from 8.7% to 3.2%. And then our very poor, we have increased ever so slightly from 0.8 to 2.0. So just thought it was kind of neat how through the years we've progressed, but it shows, we are maintaining our roadway system, but just always take more money if we could. Next slide. So this, same as the other one, this is just kind of a map that shows all those priority years from 28 to year 2030 of all the road and bridge projects scattered throughout the county, color coordinated based on the previous slides, just to show where they're all located at. So with that, I guess that's my presentation. If anybody has any questions or wants to refer back to any certain slide, or I guess maybe I should leave it up to you three where you guys want to take that here.
Any questions from the audience or online?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a few comments. First of all, and I start out with Jay, it's amazing what you do for the county, and thank you for all your efforts. I mean, obviously there's like grant writing and all that kind of stuff. So I don't understand all the different types of funding and stuff, but as you talked about the Iowa State studies on the paved roads, do they do a similar thing when you look at a gravel road? Is there a similar study available? Or how do you guys go about deciding on something like that?
Not through that program. Through the Iowa County Engineers Association, they do have certain programs, but they obviously there's a lot of demand there for that with 99 counties and limited funds, and so they do offer like to put it best way to describe it is like they measure like the stiffness of the gravel road or a modulus of, they have some term for it, but essentially the stiffness or the hardness of each gravel road. And they have sensors on equipment that can do that, but they only have so much time each year to do that, and with all the counties. So there's not really a program or institution for that, or just the Iowa County Engineers Association. And with that too, I think we would have to, we pay for that study to get done. But so yes and no, I guess is the best way to answer your question.
So if you're gonna look at a situation on gravel road, do you usually start with like a count to see how many, vehicles are using that road daily, weekly, or how do you?
And are you referring to really just like maintenance efforts or,
I mean, okay, so
or
I'm
improvements?
concerned about the safety of 407th. First gravel road leaving Bellevue.
Mhm.
Look around Bellevue and we got nice little paved all around there, and then we got 407th, it's got a big old monster hill.
Mhm.
You guys spend a lot of time. And we appreciate you. You do a great job. And you do the best job you can.
Mhm.
But, we've had a good spring so far. We're not having a crazy, but we haven't seen a lot of thaw yet. But if you were to take a drive up there right now, especially if you're going down, you would notice the road ditch is moving into the gravel road. It's very jagged and it's
Mhm.
very deep.
Eaten away.
It's just eating away at the road.
Road seems to get
And-
narrower all the
Yeah,
time.
so if you have to move over to meet a person on that hill, you gotta watch it, because if you got your tire in that road ditch, it's deep enough, you're just gonna flip the car. So, spend a lot of time digging it out, probably every year and a half, they dig it out, comes back, they try crowning the road, can't keep gravel on the road. It's just a fight on that hill.
Yeah, and I know the nature of that hill. I don't have any hard facts, but just based on driving throughout the other roads throughout the county, I feel like that's gotta be one of, if not our steepest gravel road in the county. So the nature of that hill, just, it's always gonna be, as with a lot of them, are prone to just ever continuing maintenance problems or issues. I like washboarding in the summertime when it's
Mhm.
dry. Probably in the wintertime when you get any sort of ice or snow, probably makes it that much more slick. And just being on the hill, it's just the topography and just nature of that road just always cause it to have ongoing maintenance issues. I know, like, if you're, I know you're not asking this question, but if you're like, for anybody that's wondering if we should ever, when does the county look at paving roads,
We're kind of asking.
Yeah, we're asking what, how
Just
do we get
curious.
to,
Yeah.
addressing all these issues that it has?
So we do have a road improvement policy that'll go through, basically. I and my previous engineers here both like data, based decisions on. And gives like numerical scores to stuff. That's the best way to say, like, this is no different than going back to school, like you get this grade or this, like. So we have a road improvement policy that'll go through a whole bunch of things for each road segment, like based on its classification, like is it a major or minor collector, is it an FM route? What is the traffic volumes do play into that? What is the nearest adjacent paved roadway, or how far away is that? There's a whole list of ranking criteria or scoring criteria, if you will, to then give that road an ultimate bottom number, like, okay, what is this score? And based on that score, does it meet enough to be paved? Because there's a minimum number of points to show that a road would warrant being paved, but it's also stated in there in the policy that even if it does meet the minimum points necessary to be warranted for paving, doesn't guarantee it's gonna get paved just because it's due to funding, basically. And so, for example, like we have some roads, the best one to put it is, just because it was done recently, is 308th Street north of Bellevue. That got paved, or 3rd mile, I should say, got paved. That road is actually considered a local road, so you can't use FM money, we can't use federal. All the money to pave that has to come from our 100% from our local budget, which is used for everything else our department does, salt, sand, fuel, oil, the wages, equipment, I mean, gravel on the roads, you name it. So it takes local dollars to do that, and that's where it's very tough, because our funds are already so stretched thin, and I'm sure everybody probably says that, but it's true, it's just our funds are stretched so thin. And with that case, those property owners, they actually went through a secondary road secondary road special assessment district. Where they paid for 50%, the adjoining property owners, which I think it was 21 properties as a
23,
whole, or somewhere
yeah.
around there. Actually paid for 50% of that cost. Cause that was the only way it was gonna happen.
Right.
So, and that's a very unique scenario,
You know,
but,
it doesn't have any, you know, so,
and a lot of times too, to like. When improving a road for pavement, we have to meet DOT, we have to, more times than not, it involves. Doing improvements to just the road, the type of surface that it is, but the grading and all that. Once you pave a vehicle, they're gonna go fast. You have to meet certain design criteria, which that's where it gets costly too, because then not only, depending on each scenario, more times than not, it ends up meaning we have to grade the stuff out wider, which then means we have to acquire right of way, and which is very costly as well, so. It's road improvements are, to do an improvement or to upgrade the road is costly, and we do have a process for that though. And our road improvement policy is on our county website too, on our department's page, if you're ever curious.
right, so in order for it to be looked upon, like in order to do a study like that, what would need to take place?
It'd start with basically a petition or notice, basically if you send us an email, or email is preferred just so that way everything's documented, but basically a petition of some sort to state that we would like this evaluated, and the policy will go through that too. I guess what's all required
Okay,
for that, so.
perfect, all right, I'll look that up, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like, you know, last year I remember it was like a 10-minute good rain, and you guys just left the road. And the rain came, you might as well turn around and went right back up again, because it just washes it all the way down. And, you know, it's just huge, you know, big things. I know there's a question up there. something.
Daryl's got a question up there.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 407th and FM Road.
Yeah.
We can pull that.
So with that being said, Jen, I know you say you do a study like that, so if you do pave a road like that 4/7, and that's an animal in itself because of the rock outcropping on that road. And just the steepness of that, if you did pave that road, was there a requirement? I shouldn't say this could be a bad scenario, but like an ADA requirement, so it can only be so steep? Would you have to tie it all back?
So they do have, DOT design guidelines do give a maximum gradient or profile
And
gradient.
that thing's steep, no doubt about it.
But they do
I
allow-
think that's because of the rock, probably.
And they do allow for, it's not variance, I'm drawing a blank on the exact word, I'll just call it a variance in design based, like, for whatever reasons, like.
On topography reasons or something,
Yeah, like, so for Chenoweth is a good example, the bridge, you know, you're coming down the hill to Chenoweth, it's a pretty steep. With the classification of 82nd Avenue the way it is, the sag at the bottom of the hill would have required us to actually put a whole bunch of fill in to raise it up to less than the sag, but we got a design exception.
Yeah.
To not do that, because we did a cost analysis and it would have been a ridiculously amount of cost to meet that criteria. So yes, there is a guideline, but in certain scenarios, they do allow design exceptions, which isn't uncommon given our topography. The question was.
And the bad part about that road also that it faces in the north, so it never gets a lot of sun. It's always either froze or if it's seeping or it's an animal.
Yeah, you guys pick it and and everything else trying to stay ahead of it.
And so the question was asked too, is it 407th and FM route? And yes, it is. And for anybody, whether they watching now or watch this later, the DOT has, you can Google Iowa DOT Jackson County FM map, you know, all the maps for each 99 counties are available to show which roads are FM. So it's not like, you know, we're keeping all this information is readily available, including actually the Iowa State Institute of Transportation. They're excellent, fair, good. That's all available too on their website. So this is stuff that anybody can access at their leisure. Just in case if anybody's curious, but yes, 407th is an FM road.
So does an FM road, kind of remembering everything that you said today, which I don't know half of it, does that mean it would potentially be eligible for some federally funds?
So it would for sure be eligible for FM funds.
Okay,
So the federal aid one is dictated, it doesn't have to be FM, but has to be considered a minor collector or greater. So like the classifications are, there's local road. I think there's something between local and minor collector, but there's minor collector, minor arterial, major arterial. And that is also, they call it the federal functional classification. And that's all available for each of 99 counties too. That's all available on the DOT's website to show all those classifications of roadway. So it is also for FM.
I'm sorry.
No, go
When
ahead.
you classify that as a farm to market, so 407, are you telling me that's the entire length of that road all the way to East 17th, or does it break off at 195th or something like that?
Nope, it is, the FM route starts on 107th Avenue at the intersection with Z15.
Yeah.
And continues all the way south across E17 where it turns into, I think it eventually turns into 112th Street possibly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And where it's, and to the intersection of Z34.
yeah, that's a stretch.
So I don't know if, Bjorn, do you have access to internet, I guess?
Yeah.
Then I just, for anybody that's watching later, I guess, just to kind of show what this map looks like, you can just type in Iowa DOT FM map or Jackson County. Yep, we can go to that one there. And then if you scroll down.
This is available to everybody.
Yep, there's the one for farm to market maps. And then, yep, right there. So the roads that are FM are your bolded, black line roads there.
Do a shit quick.
So. Just like for people to know where all this information, like it's where it's at and how it's displayed and such. But yeah, everything that's bolded there is FM maps, and you can actually see over towards the west side of the county, a lot of our roads are FM, but also a lot of those are gravel roads. So I don't have the number of how much of our FM system is paved versus not paved, but we'll also point out we have an FM road that is a level B road. But nonetheless, that is the map of all of the FM roads, and to know those are the roads that would be eligible for FM funding if ever so chosen.
So I'm feeling that probably the paving is probably not gonna happen anytime soon. Is there anything, I mean, I don't call it rut ditch, whatever, it is just frightening when you go down that hill and having that sunny, nice day. And the road is just getting eaten away. I mean, can they fill that with anything, like giant rocks or anything, so it's not so, I mean, again, we have ditched a car in there before years ago, but, anything that can be done to just make that a little safer on this, I mean, Cindy lives, it's her hill, she's right there, we're about 2 miles beyond, so we drive it all the time. And, you know,
But
just.
I think we have a lot of those places all throughout the county.
You do.
If you follow the river line, of even the 80th Avenue south of Kenilworth, how close the river actually gets to the road and stuff like that. It's not a nice,
It's a spot you'd be in the river.
right? I mean, that's something we encounter all over the county. So unfortunately, when it comes to financial restrictions, it's almost impossible to make things ideal because things were built on an antiquated,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
capacities from back 100.
Folk to me is hurting us.
It's
It's
expensive.
And we've lived there
Yeah.
over 30 years, and we don't expect perfection. And I tell you, the doming or crowning, that has helped on the flatter areas immensely. I mean, and Briar Springs is really well too. But, yeah, it's just, that is an area that is just,
I know some areas where we did some minor improvements or maintenance improvements, I will call it that, is where we put in, I'm gonna call them rock ditch checks
okay,
to help
Does it help?
slow the velocity down. It
Yeah,
kind
does-
of gives it a little dam or break, if
Right,
you will,
right.
to, as it flows downhill. And you'll see those even on our paved routes when they graded to pave back in the 80s through early 2000s. You'll see those everywhere, but that'd be about the only things, you know, the ditch is already essentially sitting on rock, so it's like, it's already on rock to
Yeah.
put rock in there, but a rock ditch check could be something that
Okay.
could help
Yeah.
lower the velocity.
It seems like that might happen before paving happens.
Okay, we can,
You know?
in the effort to kind of keep him back on the public hearing for the 5-year road plan. You guys can get together and talk with Jade and see, I know it's an ongoing issue, but see if there's some other ideas that could be explored. Is there any other questions or concerns about the actual 5-year plan, the budget that we have for the public hearing? Daryl said something about,
That's probably the rock
Oh,
ditch checks maybe.
yeah. They did do something in this, but it just doesn't hold anything.
It's just.
But yeah, thank you, because now we can go on your website, we can do a little more research, we can put together, at least maybe looking at it, getting a study done.
Mhm.
So fantastic, thank you for all your explanation on that.
I did not receive any comments for the public hearing as far as the 5-year road plan. Did you
I
guys?
did not. I was surprised, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I think most people, for the most part, are pretty happy about our ongoing projects and, you know, try to maintain them out. Safe manner.
Your
We
crowning?
got a lot of comments when we started crowning, but I think that kind of.
I mean,
think they understand.
After a year or two, how
It's
Seeing
how it
how it's
turned out,
I
yeah.
helping.
think it's.
They didn't get the water off the road, make heck of a difference.
especially this time of year, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
Yeah.
I know we're far from spring yet, but we've had some spring-like conditions and the roads are, and don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of frost on the ground, but there's been dust line there, everything's been good.
I drove quite a bit Sunday and there a fair amount were dry. There was even dust on the road and again, it's early in the process, but it's far cry better than what we saw in a few years ago. So
Friends I'd like to just make a view
Mhm.
going forward is, I know like, so the one bridge I travel across quite regularly is the new 24th Street, I believe it's Street
Mhm.
Bridge. Where, are we making sure we get a good base coming off of them bridges?
We are now.
Because that bridge has a definite dip in it, you feel it both ways, like.
Yeah, so on our bridge replacement projects on gravel roads, whether it's our local or federal ones, we're actually putting through the area of construction, macadam stone base down instead of just regular road rock. And I know those two ones that we actually had the public hearings for last week, the locally let ones, those are like our day labor that we are moving as far as constructing earlier in the summer versus waiting until the fall too, when it gets that not ideal time when everything's wet, nothing dries out, all that. So 'cause that one was open, I think, right before we got that 12 inches of snow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But
so
that's
but
a
we put
definite-
macadam down as a base. We're putting, I think, right, pull up the plans, but 8 inches of macadam topped with 6 inches of road stone on top of it to help with that stabilization.
Okay.
So yes,
needs a little bit.
so that one will have to, yeah, touch up with rock.
any other comments regards to the 5-year road plan public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I would second that.
Got a motion by Mike, second by Nan to close the public hearing on the 5-year road plan. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion
Thank you,
carried.
Jaden.
Thank you very much for coming in. Make sure you guys get together and see, and
Thank you
Check.
guys.
we're always willing to try to improve, but we have limitations.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming back to money, but yeah.